Over meetup. This is the second meetup this year, and yeah, my name is Riga Mobile. If you don't know me, so you can reach me in social media, and my email is there. So please drop me questions or comments if you have any. So shortly about the agenda. So since we are not very long last day, and there are a couple of new faces, so probably we could introduce ourselves in a very short term. Who am I, what I'm doing, and what's my mobile application background, because we're looking for two parts of the developer community here, technical guys and business guys, so we'd like to mix and match those two communities together and make content and speakers for both parts to be interested in, to come and network between each other. So today we have two speakers. First is Jurgis, who will tell about how much to build a mobile app, and second is Mikls, who is will talk about functional reactive programming with reactive Cocoa framework. Then we have an announcement part at the very end, as in every startup, as in every meetup, and so you could free to speak about your proposal or wish or startup or anything else. We get wrap up. So yeah, we could start with introductions with first row. So yeah, just briefly tell who am I, what I'm doing, and what's my mobile experience starting from you.
Okay. Yeah. So hi there. I'm Dmitry. I'm an iOS developer for 4 years actually, and I'm just to catch up and to see what's going on here. Okay.
Okay, I'm Jurgis. I will talk later, so I will introduce myself later as well.
Hello, I'm Igors. I'm here to meet common build. My friends developers. That's it.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm a UX person, and I'm just here to see what's going on.
Hi, I'm Richard, and I'm managing mobile apps in Riga.
Hi, I'm Moses. I'm both iOS and Android developer, and this is my second time here, and so just waiting what's it gonna be like.
Hi, my name is Dennis. I'm an Android developer, and I'm here to see and to find something new.
And you're a developer, you develop the Android application, right?
Yes, we're developing.
Okay. So if you've got a question about the Android application, you're the person who to ask them. Okay.
Hi, my name is Nick. So my day job is leading the digital practice of an PR agency called Hill & Knowlton Strategies. But on my spare time, I'm learning to code iOS, and I have around 6 months experience doing that.
My name is Walters. I'm a designer, but I'm learning iOS now. So I want to see what the industry are.
Hi, my name is Chris. I have 4 years experience in iOS and about 15 years in guitar playing, and I'm developing games. And I'm especially interested in developers for Android who are capable to do some multimedia tasks related to multimedia, sound, graphics, and for games mostly.
So you're going to develop game or already developed games?
I have already developed games, and I'm trying to make it cross-platform. So Android hardcore developers, I'm here.
Hello, my name is Elmers. I consider myself to be Android developer, but I'm doing also Java stuff, and I'm also interested in cross-platform applications. I'm doing development using Sage. This is my first time here, and just to see what's going on here, meet new faces, to make some new
Okay. Right.
I'm Alexei. I love programming, love teaching people programming. Have a bit of experience in Java, a little bit in Android. So again, I'm curious to see what's happening.
In the past, something like 4 years probably, I've been doing contract programming, mostly iOS. Worked on a project porting the Android system itself, but haven't really done Android apps.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Selena. I am now the user interface designer coordinator. So I'm making design as for web pages and for mobile applications.
Hi, my name is Gunnar, so I'm a designer, but I'm interested in mobile applications as well, and I'm here to see what's going on and maybe learn something new about them. And yeah.
Okay.
Hey, my name is Richard, I'm from the same company, RMIT, senior project manager, web project manager, building an app free time, spare time, phone sex application for iOS people, and I'm here just to be up to date about the industry and meet new people.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm representing an international startup based in Barcelona, and I'm looking for app developers. I have communicated with a couple of you already, so hopefully I'll meet somebody.
Okay. So the last row, maybe you could also introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hey guys, my name is Nicholas. I work at Full Contact, which is a Denver, Colorado-based startup with an office in Riga. I am the technical lead for the apps team, which is iOS, OS 10, and now also Android. And I'm just here to give a presentation, really technical one. Hope I'm not scaring anybody away with that, but also want to see who else is doing interesting stuff in Riga.
Hey, I'm Martin. I also work for Full Contact. I'm an iOS developer too, and yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Roland. I am a web project manager, and I just want to see what's new in the mobile world.
Hi, my name is Edgar. I'm an electronics engineer. I have developed some iOS applications, and I was just interested to get into this meeting.
Hi, my name is Martin. I'm just a user, and I like these meetups to understand what's happening in Riga and learn from these things.
We need user.
My name is Edgars, and I work with the other Edgar in the same project.
Okay.
You guys. I'm Maris, I'm running e-commerce, and I'm just here.
Okay.
The grant lab.
I'm Maris, and I run a web-based application startup, and here I want to learn something about iOS apps or whatever mobile apps.
So you two guys of you who said you are from Full Contact, this is actually the company who bought Kobo.
Yep.
Those who don't know, so it's quite a big success to the story. So are you still based here, not in Denver, Colorado?
Well, the main part of our company is in Denver, but we are 7 people now in Riga, and the Riga office is going to continue on growing, and the app development team is based here.
Cool.
So if you're interested, come talk to me after the presentation.
I'm happy about what's happening right from country because it's not the right technology still counts. So probably we could make a short survey about from the developer part, who developing what, because you said that you're developing on different platforms. So maybe we can please raise your hands who is able to develop iOS application. How much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, who is able to make an Android app? Okay, and Windows Phone? 1, 2. middleware.
Middleware or mobile web or what do you mean?
Yeah, mobile applications, HTML and JavaScript based or
Kinda.
okay. So there's quite even more iOS and Android developers, and I think that the same people are developing the same different platforms. So it's
Like version.
yeah. So yeah, that's interesting from statistics. So a couple of announcements about other events going on in technology entrepreneurship ecosystem here in Latvia. We are organizing altogether 8 different entrepreneurship and technology related meetup groups here in Latvia. So this is January, so we need to switch already to February. So next, those all 8 groups are monthly meetups, so they're appearing every month. So next Tuesday, first is CUDA and parallel programming meetup. So we are going to, if we have a deal, so probably we'll got some interesting thing how to build a cluster from micro recruiters. It's actually quite challenging and interesting workshop what we're going to do. So next meetup will be February 3D printing meetup happening in Riga Technical University Design Factory in Kipso in Azets Street. All other meetups are happening here. And then we have biotechnology meetup in February. We're talking about everything related to biotechnology, wet science and IT science all together. So if you're interested, come there and find your interesting peers. So then we have idea pitching, some event called Find Your Co-Founder. It's very early stage pitching, not contest, but event where you could briefly pitch your idea in front of crowd and looking for teammates, not for investment. So it's very early stage. So if you would like to join some team or you have an idea, so just appear in the next meetup here and you're free to speak. So then we have a Bitcoin and cryptocurrency meetup next in Monday of 23rd of February. We're talking about cryptocurrencies development. So probably we'll have somebody from Estonian cryptocurrency agency for this time. Then we have drone meetup. Last time we met yesterday, so there's a lot of people there, around 50 or 60, I don't know. It's quite big crowd. And we're expecting to talk about the regulations and some technical stuff in the next meetup. Then we have mobile application meetup. So if you would like to speak or suggest some speakers for this meetup, let me know. So yeah, we were looking for somebody to bring the training because people in Latvia actually is not willing to make peer-to-peer networking. They would like to listen to the talks, the content. And then we have a UI UX February meetup for designers and related people also happening here. So if you're looking for designers and would like to ask something to them or propose, so just this is one time and place where they come together. So a couple of words of sponsors. So I represent Riga University, who is taking care about technology entrepreneurship education, organizing those meeting groups. So Microsoft is also our sponsor. So for members who have startups and would like to apply for Microsoft BizSpark program, you just drop me an email and yeah, you get free membership of BizSpark. Means a couple of not a couple, but almost everything, every software piece from Microsoft free of charge in license term, and Microsoft Azure Cloud instance for a year for free. So Latvia Guarantee, thanks Latvia Guarantee Agency about financially supporting this meetup for, yeah, thank them. We have food and also, yeah, don't forget to sign up to those sheets. We need to report back that we're not stealing money. So yeah, a couple of featured resources from last meetup. So this is we are partnering with Udacity in the educational part. So for those who don't know, This is one of the largest Silicon Valley move provider, and they have actually new programs of nanodegrees. It's equivalent in industry, equivalent for higher education, something like that. And they offering iOS developer nanodegree. So if you would like to have some kind of certificate, check the website, and it's not cost a lot. It's yeah. I don't know even how much it costs, but 10 times cheaper than a college degree in the United States, so as they said. This is a second industry. This is not now degree program, this is a course module, so it's called Intro to iOS Application Development in Swift. So you could apply to this free of charge if you're interested in that. This is once again industry models for UX design for mobile developers. It's also supposed to be free. Then interesting resources is Poland-based startup, which actually is now Silicon Valley startup, but this is a very good place for designing mockups and wireframes. So it's a company called UXP. And they have a lot of free resources for developers, this is actually their web-based wireframe design interface for mobile apps, and they have published a lot of interesting free ebooks for mobile UI design patterns and wireframing and other stuff, so you can check them out.
They have also, when you use their application to wireframe, they also have ready content for material design in iOS 8 and almost every other platform, so you don't need to make things from nothing. They have presets ready for you.
Yeah, it's actually a good tool for those entrepreneurs who would like to start their business as a mobile app, because I know that every developer is very bored about questions. How much? Because entrepreneurs come and ask how much it costs to make this application. This is a very important question actually. So this is a good tools for entrepreneurs to start with wireframing and show what they really need to do, what they really ask for developer to develop actually, and put their mindset in the right way. So there's a couple of middleware, as I call them, those who are in the industry and developers probably know those companies and platforms. So this is a Silicon Valley-based company called Accelerator. Yeah, they have some growing platform. I know that there's not a lot of usage between developers of this platform, but if you're looking for some universal platform for universal app, probably it could be the choice. Second is the phone gap, one of the most popular. So, and second we discovered last time is Xamarin. Yeah, cool. So you will tell a little bit more if somebody has some kind of question.
Somebody is interested.
Yeah, somebody is interested. Yeah.
Most probably no.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, this is an interesting site for iOS application average store review time. But we actually made a new release of our software last week, and still it's 1 week around, and this application is not still upgraded. So now it seems a little bit more than 1 week for revising iOS application, so something like that. Features startup. This is a section we like to encourage entrepreneurship here in Latvia, and I would like to see some promising startup making mobile application in every meetup. For today, I actually don't have any company or any product, so we could skip this step. But for next time, if you would like to be acknowledged as a startup or a mobile application, just drop me a mail so we can give you a floor for a short presentation about yourself and what you're doing. So yeah, and now we can speakers, so we can switch to the Jurgis.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
So it will be first time in 5 years since I left big company when I presented something, so excuse me, something goes wrong.
This is another big conference, so you.
This is the first time when I present with a bottle of beer. Also excuse if something goes wrong.
Enjoy.
No. Yeah. As Richard said, the most boring answer a developer can get. So I'm going to talk about boring things today. First, I didn't introduce myself at this moment, but as a speaker I have rights to be introduced much more. So I work on mobile apps since 2009. I work with small team. We have two developers, one designer, and we involve extra people when the project needs that. We work on contracts, on consulting, developing apps for other people, helping other teams to define their mobile app. So it means that sometimes we don't develop app itself, but only helping in the beginning of the process, just defining the product and how it will be implemented, and maybe helping with prototyping and things like that. And meanwhile, we're also building our own apps portfolio. So there are a couple of them in the App Store, and some of them are already out of the App Store because they failed or was not so successful as we wanted. So currently there are 4 apps in Apple App Store and 1 in Android Play and Samsung apps, not on Android app. The 3 icons with the glass look similar, but they are not exactly the same. It's a drink control, our most successful product so far. It's an app for moderate drinkers like me. And currently we are working on a new app for landlords, for people who have 2 apartments, and in one they live themselves, and the second one they rent out to other people. So it's an app for people like small citizen landlords. So that is what I do. And that's a question I get the most. So I have enough idea, and how much it would be. And I understand if I give an answer, there are 2 options. I already said something, and it's too cheap, and I will have to do this work for that money, I thought. Or I will scare them off and answer, let's say, something too big for them. So, and then I usually answer, oh, it will be somewhere between 3,000 euros and maybe 300,000 euros. So, and the reaction usually is like, and I can understand that. But you can understand me. You said you have an idea for that, and maybe you have even something more like idea for that. But it's not enough for me to give you exact answer how much does it take. So we need to understand the process how mobile apps are built, and this is a little bit different how big enterprise apps are built. So let's look on the process. So it starts with idea. We can imagine idea. Let's do a thought experiment. Let's imagine together idea we are going to build. Something very simple.
Landlord has 2 flats.
It's not simple idea. We won't be able to cover it here. Let's make something very simple. Yeah,
There's some simple camera filters that calculate.
Not very simple. Simple. Okay, the very simple app could be the Notes app. but you already have notes up on your phone. Let's build something which is simple, but maybe not so simple as the notes app and not on the phone. Let's build an expenses tracking app. So you just write together. Today I went to shop. I bought a book. So I should write the amount of money I spent on the book, and then maybe I put the category. It's education, and then I will be able to see how much I spent on books and how much I spent on food in the last months or in the last year. So it's a meaningful app, and it gives some value, right? And it's at the same time it's very simple. So we have this idea. And how we can develop this idea. So we have to design and prototype it. So we have to understand how we are going to write down these expenses. What kind of information will give afterwards when the user have write down their expenses. So we need to design and prototype, and sometimes we need to get back to idea and think about, is our expenses that will be able to cover the requirements for enterprises, like, you go with customers to the restaurant, and then you have to fill these expense reports in the company. And you need to think, maybe it's not that idea, maybe it's a different idea. You design a prototype and came with the prototype of the app, and then you are ready to develop it. And sometimes you start to develop it, and you need to go back, because you understand something you had imagined was not so easy as you imagined the first time. So you go back and refine your prototype, and sometimes you even go back and refine your idea. And then you develop your app and you launch it in App Store, and then you receive a question from the customer which asks, why does this app doesn't support this? Why doesn't this app doesn't support that? Why this app crashes? Why it doesn't allow to enter me the amount in different currencies? And then you probably again should come back to your develop phase, or probably design and prototype phase, and sometimes even your idea phase. So it's not like a very streamlined process from E to B. It's going in the circles, going in iterations. And when you have this idea, and you're asking, how much will take to you to do all these circles? And honestly, the only answer I can give you, it's something between 3,000 and 300,000 euros, right? Because it's not so simple. The thing that was very simple in the beginning, when we start thinking about expanding it, it's not so simple anymore. So, what we can do to improve our chances to estimate correctly. So we need to somehow formalize this process and maybe understand what we are doing in every of these phases. And then probably we will be able to give more accurate estimates. So let's build our simple expenses app. So, what we are going to build? We are going to build an app that allows you to enter expense, and then allow to see how much you have spent during the last month, during previous months, during the year. So we are going to do a little exercise on app idea. So we are going to do strategy or definition of this application. The first thing we have to think about is, what is the app goal? So track expenses. What is the app audience? So here we have to decide whether it's an application for the enterprise, because it will be different. You will have to add some client information and project information and maybe something more, or we are going to do just a simple app for regular consumers. So let's say regular consumers, it sounds much more simpler. The second thing we have to do is to explore competition. Why? I just made a search in App Store with expense tracking, and I get 524 applications for expense tracking. So that probably already enough that does exactly that, or maybe in similar way, or maybe in some another way, and most probably there are a lot of good ideas already. So we have to spend some time and explore competition, because it gives our understanding what our app is going to be, and maybe also how we can differentiate our app from others. Because after all, we are going to make some money out of it, right? Then we have to define what is minimum viable product for our application. So the minimum functionality we are going to deliver in release number 1. So that we have to draw the line. Initially we have thought, okay, maybe we will add this multi-currency support, but then for version 1 maybe it's not so important. So we'll put this out of our minimum viable product. We have to decide what platforms are we going to support. So it will be just an iPhone app, or maybe an iPad app, or both. We have to think about what operation system versions are we going to support, because that's a huge difference, building up for OS 2.0 or OS 8.0, it's a different thing. There are lots of differences in the frameworks and things like that, so we have to decide. And of course, the legal stuff have to be figured out, like who owns that, who publishes that, who gets the money, what will be the cooperation between the client who wants to build this expense app and the developer who are going to develop it. Because, for example, how long will be warranty period for app? So how long bugs will be fixed free of charge? So we have to figure all these things out. We also need to spend some time discussing and agreeing on things. So no exercise for you. Take out your mobile phones. I suppose everyone should have a mobile phone here. Take out and write down. How do you think? How many days? Man days. You understand what's one day that one person spends? How many days this phase is going to take for our simple app? Just write down, because you will need to count them together. So don't rely on your memory, operational memory. Just that. How do you think? Day 2. Keep your estimates to yourself, and don't worry if they are not accurate. That's not the point. I'm not going to give you a grade for estimating. You just need to half a day, week. So just write down.
For all these 6 together, or
all this slide together, to figure and agree on all these things. How much Mondays does it take? Right? Can we move? Everybody wrote down their estimate? Great. So the second thing. We agreed on our goals. We agreed on what will be in the release number 1. Now we have to describe everything good enough that we can give it to developer, and developer will understand without questioning what do you mean here. So for our expenses app, which is quite simple, of course, there will be some functionality we have to build. We have to build entry screen where we write down expense. We will have to build some lists that recent expenses. We have to build a screen where some summaries will be, summary for the month. And we have to build a screen where will be the expenses for the last year and current year. So there will be more questions. Are we going to support search? Yes or no? Is it important for our minimum viable product? I don't know. So let's agree, no search. Version 1, no search. It's much more simpler. Then our very simple expenses are, does it comes with some categories, like expense category, education, travel, food, etc. Yes? Most probably yes. Otherwise it's like a little bit dumb, right? So we have to maintain these categories, right? There should be screen for maintaining these categories that user can make his own category, like meetup spending. Yeah. And what else should we do? We should provide functionality to delete things, right? We should provide, probably, yes or no, functional to share the expense. So maybe you have paid for the restaurant bill and then probably share the expense with your friends because they also eat and you paid and maybe you want money back. So you have to decide whether you are going to support this functionality or not. So you write down all the things are your application is going to support. Then you build the idea of navigation, how user will go through your application. And the most effective way, of course, is wireframes or prototyping. So you can build a low fidelity prototype just by drawing on the page of paper, right? All these screens and all these lists and how the application will organize information. But then to really understand how app will feel, you have to build some kind of navigation to how the user will cycle through the app, how it will come from the overall view to delete the particular expense. So you have to build at least some low fidelity prototype. The most effective way, again, it can be just the pages of paper you just toss. Then you go to this screen, and then you go to this screen, and then you go to this screen. Something that you are able to discuss with people, right? And what is very recommended, even for very simple applications, is the user testing. And user testing, it sounds very complicated, right? But in fact, it's very simple. Initially, you just choose some friends and show your prototypes drawn on pages of paper and ask them, what do you think? Do you understand what is here or not? So, and it will not take a lot of time. It will take half an hour with 3 of your friends, but trust me, you will get very valuable insight how you decided to build your expense tracking application. In this phase, we also have to decide about tools and technologies we are going to use. So, are we going to build with Swift, the new Apple language, or are we going to build it with Objective-C? And by the way, Richard's made a point about this Udacity Swift course. Stanford University recently published their Swift course free of charge. So if you want to learn Swift, that's a very good opportunity. So we decide on the technologies we are going to use. If you are going to build the expenses tracking app that will be also able to run to Android devices, then we have to account for that here. So already here, because it can change the whole idea of how the navigation will work, because apparently for iOS devices and Android devices, the platform conventions are very different. What is expected, how the navigation is expected to be on iOS devices is very different from how it's expected to be on Android device. So this design concept phase will take some time, right? So you can write down how Mondays do you think it will take for our expensive, very simple expensive app? Not just to add to it the previous page. So, because I will ask afterwards how much it will be together. So no code here, no code here at this phase. Yeah? Only low fidelity prototypes like drawing on the paper and maybe drawing screens in some wireframing tool like UXP or something. But no actual coding, no designers work here with Photoshop also. Yeah, concept idea, we have our concept design, we have our prototype, we have our prototype tested. So we can move forward. Next phase, we have to deal with visual design, right? Now we have to ask our designer friends to help us, maybe even a bit earlier, also in our wireframing and designing the navigation, they also can help. Design, it's a very complicated thing, especially when you understand that there are 500 applications in the App Store that provides expense tracking. What are they different with? They are different with design, most probably, because functionally they are pretty much similar. They all allow to track expenses, but design is what defines them. So, visual language, copywriting, are we going to make a formal application which asks, are you going to delete this expense, yes or no, or maybe, hey, you delete, yeah, no. Yeah, it's different choices we have to make. Decisions about colors, fonts, and design elements. We have to create great app icon, because it's also one of the things that really differs applications. So sometimes we just don't look on the applications which icons doesn't look like very well made, right? And at this phase as well, there can be involved user testing, that we show our application to people and ask them what they think. Do they understand what's important, what's not? Do they understand the visual hierarchy? Do they understand where to go next? Right? So it also will take some time. So add your estimate here. Mondays. How many days people will spend on this phase? And move forward. Actual development. So here is where coding starts. We have our prototype, we have our design, maybe not design assets with many resolutions, but we have conceptually made our application, our design. So we have to build a data model, we have built business logic, what happens when users enters expense with negative amount, so like, or with zero, or doesn't enter the name of this expense. We have to account for these cases, build the business logic. We have to build actual navigation in the application, and screens and transitions and user and build the user experience that designers are drawn. Sometimes it's not so simple. Something that is very simple in the Photoshop doesn't happen to be so simple when you have to code that. We have to build the unit tests that application will actually correctly count the expenses for the last year, not just giving you any casual number. And of course we have to involve user testing here. So again, it sounds complicated, it's not. You just take your application version 0.1, you go to cafe, you pay for cafe for your friend and ask you to ask friend to use your application and observe, most importantly observe, not try to teach them how to use the application, but observe what they are doing with the application and understand what you've done wrong. Trust me, it's a very, first time it's a very challenging experience, because you are going to, no, press here. So if they not able to figure it out, then probably you have done something wrong. Also in this phase you can decide that you will make some better builds and maybe distribute to larger number of people and maybe try to catch some bugs with help of other people. So, and of course it also involves discussion and communication between parties. If you are not the only person developing this app, then of course it also involves a lot of communication. So, take your stakes. I know that many of you are not app developers. That's not the point. Just estimate. There have to be some work involved here, right? Yeah?
22.
Yeah, but write down.
Counted.
You already counted. Good, but we'll go forward and then we come together. Yeah? It's not the finishing, because we have the publishing phase. We have to launch this application. We have to actually get developer account for one or many platforms. For example, if you're publishing in Android ecosystem, it doesn't mean that you publish in the Google Play alone. So most probably you have to publish at least in two places, so Samsung App Store and Google Play. If you build an application that is more than one language and also is going to be used international, then probably you have to publish it in China, because the China doesn't use Google Play at all. Yeah? So it will also take some time. Publishing the application will take some time. Yeah? You have to prepare all the materials for launching the application, decide on the keywords and descriptions, and make screenshots and make videos, and maybe prepare the application website, and marketing and press releases and things like that. So it also will take some time, right? And sometimes you are submitting up to the App Store and then waiting for the week, like you are, and then you ask it for submitting the application because it violates something. Yeah, that happens. So it will take some time. You have to estimate it, right? Just add to your estimate. Yeah, and by the way, it's not like you just make screenshots of the application. You make screenshots in many sizes. You prepare a lot of imageries, like don't even ask how many different sizes you have to prepare. It's complicated. And then there is support, because we have launched the application, and then application is public, and then users download them, and then the application crashes and no what. So you probably have to prepare for situations like this. You have to at least account for some time that these situations can happen. And if you are working with developer, you have to at least agree that developer will be available for let's say 3 months after application will launch, just to make sure that the problems can be fixed quickly. And someone, of course, has to answer all the user feedback. So users will write the questions. They will be asking for the features, and they will be criticizing your application, so somebody should take care of it. So it also will take some time, right? You just add to your previous estimate. So, and there are a list of things we didn't include in our application, because it's a very simple application, but maybe we would like to include these features in our real-world application, like analytics integration for tracking how many users actually is using our application and which screens they are stuck on. We are not going to implement any synchronization with web systems, because trust me, sync is hard. Yeah, and we will not include in our release number 1. No back recovery, no specific crash logging. I thought it might be easy to implement, but still. No integration with mobile apps library. So we are just making free expense tracking app, or expense tracking app that is paid application. So no mobile ads library, no in-app purchasing, because it also requires some programming work, right? Figuring out whether user has piracy protection. Trust me, even in Apple ecosystem, the apps are pirated. There are even applications which are not popular are pirated. For example, our train control, I can find the pirate versions of it, so it's not a big problem. In the real world, if you make a paid application, you probably have to think about this as well. So, no. The better question. I have this idea about expense tracking application. So how much days do you think it takes to build this application? So, now it's time for you.
40.
40.
30.
30.
40.
40.
2 months.
2 months. It's 40.
60.
60.
90.
90.
60.
60. So, you know, it sounds really reasonable. And it sounds reasonable. Why? Because we did go through the process. We specified our requirements. We tried to understand what's included in version 1 of our application. So, when we do all this deeper understanding things, we came up with more or less accurate estimate, right? So, know how much the application will cost. It's just easy. You just take our estimated days. So, it was between 30, so let's say 35 days, right? There was more than 30, but 35 days for everything, yeah? It doesn't, there is no differentiation between developers' work and business person work. It's just total time. So, we just deliberately choose some daily rate. So what's the reasonable daily rate nowadays per day? Average.
Average per day?
Average per day. Again, it's not so important.
400 euros.
400 euros.
240.
240. So, again, it's not so important, but it's easy. We just multiply days, our estimated days for the product with our daily rate. Daily rate can differ, of course, because some of us thinks that it's 400 euros. And there are some reasons for that, because we can be very experienced, we can be very professional, so we want to build a great application, so we value our work highly. And there can be persons who are going to learn new platforms, learn iOS or Android development, and of course they can't ask for 400 euros per day, right? Initially. So there will be cost estimate for our very simple expenses up. It's gonna be, I don't know, 200 multiplied by 35, it's like 7,000 euros, yeah? Yeah.
Comments on that?
So,
Smile.
No, but understand, that's the total cost, total effort. It's not the developer time, right? Because it also includes business person time. And that's my point.
Designer's time as well.
Designer's time, the business person time.
Marketing person.
Yeah. But it's total effort. So, and it's important to understand that things cost as much as they cost. And that's the point. When you are a business person, then you come and ask a different question. I already have application design mockup or wireframe or something. And you say, no. So, my answer for that question is congratulations, you have done at least something. It's not like idea, I will show, sorry, I just can't resist. You are not this person who is saying, I'm not going to do anything, but I will give you 30% of profits. You just build everything. And then of course it's like, of course, go and find another one. So it's very good that you have done something, you make design mockups. But what's important to understand, design mockups are not prototype. And prototype, it's much more valuable as a tool for estimation than the design mockups, because design usually, as far as I can see, because I don't know, they're different people and different mockups, but as far as I see, they are made in the for the ideal world. Like everything is filled already, and design mockups usually don't show how you get to the result. And it's important, not just design mockups, that shows you how much you have spent on books, on car, and on your property, but how you get to this result. This is also important.
Keyboards are never open.
Yeah, never open a keyboard that takes half of the screen on a mobile phone. So the design mockups usually are not tested with the real user, because it's hard to test designs while they are not prototypes, right? Because you can't go through the flow. And usually they are not tested on different device sizes. So, and sometimes also doesn't take platform user interface conventions into account. So basically, it's very, very good step that you have designed mockup. But remember, it's not the only step you have to take to ask for accurate estimate. You have to do a little bit more what we have described in this concept prototype phase. So just a simple example from our drink control application, right? It's a perfect design, but then you have the larger screen, iPhone 5 screen, and it has more space, so we can put some design elements from here to here, right? Because it makes sense, because you know, when you keep your phone one-handed, it's easier to push say button here or not the upper corner. And then you have iPhone 6, and then you probably have to move both of them downstairs. So design is not a static thing, it's more like a living thing, like responsive web design is. So, and then you have iPhone 6 Plus, and these are actually relative sizes. So you see that on iPhone 6 Plus, it looks already a bit awkward. You have to do something else in terms of design here, because it's like not perfect. Yeah? So design mockup is nice, it's good step. But what I can really suggest when you have design is to improve your design. There's very good presentation in last year's Apple Global Developer Conference, prototyping fake it till you make it. It's not very non-technical. It's how to build design flow. It's not just a static thing, but prototype, very low fidelity prototype. And there are a lot of applications, and UXPin is one of them. These are tools for building prototypes from existing design assets. For example, you have these design mockups, and you can just make some things like hotspots that lead to other things. And I actually work with this pop-up, which allows also to make these very low fidelity prototypes. You just draw something on the paper, then take a photo of it, and then in the prototyping tool just connect the things, how screens move from one to another. So when test your design, it really helps. It helps to refine the idea and get closer to actual estimation. So, in summary, I don't know how many minutes I already take, but I'm close to finish. So, be ready to invest your time. It's actually a message to business people. So I know that you value your time, but if you're going to build a great product, then you have to be ready to invest your time. So helping to build this prototype, helping to refine this design, refine the idea what they are going to build. So it's not like you will just pass the design to developer and they will figure out. They are not. If you just bring them design, then you will probably get half the product, right? Strategy, definition, and concept prototype, they are essential phases to give you accurate estimates. And it's not as hard as it seems. How much days was in your first two phases of this? Strategy, definition, and concept prototype. How many days from this total of 40 days? 6, 5. So it's a small part of the whole project, like 10% of the whole project, but it's very important. Yeah. And if you want the concept or prototype to be done for you at good quality, so most probably it's very good to be ready to pay for it. So then you can came with the plan how to build the application, with the estimates how much does it cost and how much time it takes. And also what's very important, all the assumptions we have to take during our exercise, like which platforms are going to support, which features we will leave out of our version number 1 and things like that. So it will take, this concept prototype phase can take from 2 to 5 days. I haven't seen that they take more, like 2 to 5 days. When people work together and came up with a plan, and then they can say how much does it take to build an app. So then you have a plan, you have an idea, you have a prototype. Then you have to decide how you are going to build it. So you can hire experience and build up quickly. Maybe not so cheap, but quickly, because the experienced people know how to do things. They already have experienced a lot of things that ask for workarounds and then figure them out. You can hire a student or learner who really eager to learn in this new platform and maybe not asking so much, but understand that it will take more time for them. And you can hire, of course, cheap. Has anyone used Elance for anything? Elance is the website where you can ask for cheap work, like this is actual request from Elance that asked it to clone our drink controller for iOS. So the client asked it to rip off our application, and in all these screenshots there was totally copy of our application, and it was awarded for $1,400. And there's a catch. So I know that it's much more, because that's not a simple application as expense tracking application. The catch is here. This contract was awarded in April, and there is no such application in the App Store. So most probably they already failed, because it's easy to say, yeah, okay, no problem. Another advertisement for Elance. It was person what was already hired cheap and now understand that code is buggy and application crashes, and now he wants to fix all these problems. The problem is that he don't even understand what's going on and where to go. So you have to think really clearly. If you have a very good prototype, if you have very good design, and you are sure that there is no room for misinterpretations, you can go here. There you will get some Indian people from India or from Philippines, and they will say, yeah, no problem, I will do that cheap. You can think about students. They are eager to work, they are eager to build their portfolio, and you can hire experience. That's up to you. But understand, anyway, you have to have a good plan before that. Yeah? You have questions?
I want to ask one question about Ella that you said.
Yeah.
So sometimes, or more of the time, when you want to hire somebody from India or Philippines, there is a situation about communication.
Yeah.
And about interesting.
Yeah.
And not always you can get the right candidate for that.
That's one problem, and second problem is we usually don't count our times when we are asking for somebody else to do something. If we think of how much time we will spend discussing and trying to tell these people what to do, you will understand that you are spending a lot of time, and your time also is valuable. So think about that. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you. You are very patient. And some questions, discussions, yeah?
In your company, do you separate the phases and build them separately?
No. As I said, we separate the phases when we do planning. But the process
Have you ever build separately the planning part?
Yeah, we do it as part of our consulting work. So we are building the project plan with all assumptions, what we are going to do, what we are not going to do, what is the assumption regarding web APIs and things like that. And it's a part of consulting work. Yeah. As I said, it's usually 2 to 5 days of work.
Any questions more for you?
Yeah.
It's an experience prototyping. I would suggest that sometimes you take a time and investigate your client, because it has happened that when you put any kind of working prototype with real designs on the device, there's no coding. Then it is followed by questions. Oh, but it's already done. It's pushing. It's working. The screens are changing. There should be no time in this.
Yeah, no, I'm happy enough to not have many of these problems. My approach to this usually is I use, especially for this, I use low fidelity prototypes. I usually, so the first phase I draw on the paper. The second phase, when I already have an idea how the application will look like, I will draw in a keynote, like with frames, like black and white, and then people understand that it's not real. Yeah? Because if you just put your real design, of course it's so, there's nothing to do, just code and it's ready.
Yes.
Yeah, that's low fidelity prototypes really help to distinct that this visual design is that's the reason why I've separated visual design, because it is really complicated, and sometimes it's as I said, it's very important because there are 500 applications for expense tracking. So if you look on them, the design is what differentiates.
It depends on the client, what skill do they possess.
Any more questions, discussions, observations?
Are we free to put this presentation on a web?
Why not?
Because probably it's a good way for customers to send before they ask us questions. Just think
I will send the slides.
Because
I will publish them in SlideShare and you can link them.
Yeah, because it's very valuable for maybe not for some part of developers, but most valuable for customers.
Business people.
or yeah, who are ordering
Customer business
applications.
people. That was my point because in the previous meetup there were more like business people in people interested in building applications than the application developers themselves, and so I think that it might be a good start for the meetup.
I think there are a lot of customers who are thinking like in construction business, so I would like app. So how much it costs? 10,000? No.
Yeah, but you know, when you build a house, it's again the same. You pay for architect to do the plan for you.
Okay.
It's not like you just say, build me a house, and someone saying, okay, it's 100,000 euros. And you're like, okay, I like this idea. And then you go to house and it doesn't look like my house I have imagined. So it's the same. It's absolutely the same with building real things.
More striking example is in the tender for building some jobs is executed. Everybody's bidding lowest price. So there's a lot of things which are not included in the.
Yes, I didn't tell about it.
Jobs.
This is one point which, as a business person, should be really aware of. So avoid lock-in. So what lock-in means that you don't have any rights on the end product. So avoid situations when you publish your app on the developer's account,
Yeah.
because you will have no control of it. Also agree in the very beginning who owns the code, because if you own the code, you can bring the code for another developer if you just agree that you can't work together. So that was my in my first slide, this strategy phase, that legal stuff. It's very important to figure it out, because when you came in the lock-in phase, so you have a product, it's successful, you want to add the features, and you are locked in, then the developer can ask any amount of money from you, and you don't want that. So.
And as customers, don't forget to ask private key for Android apps because it sticks to the developers, and a lot of developers use one.
Yeah, but it's also just agree legally who owns the code.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But if you would like to earn the code, sometimes developers send you just source code. That's it, and without private key. So
yeah. Because, it's like nobody likes contracts. Who cares about contracts? The contracts are just needed when the worst situation occurs. They are not written for when everything is all right. Yeah.
So any more questions, comments on that from your experience, or you would like to comment price of?
So we can build this very simple experience app for 7,000 euros, which sounds reasonable, and most probably it will be a good application. Right?
Any comments on price?
No, but it's all included. It's included marketing people, business people. It's not like just the developer time. Developer time probably will be half of that. That's a rough estimate. So thank you for.
Okay, thank you.
We're welcoming second speaker.
Bingo profile.
So yeah, we will start with you could grab food and then go to school.
Hey guys, listen up please. I would like to start, if you don't mind. So if you could all take a seat. Alright, so hi again, my name is Vitalis. I work for Full Contact and thanks to them for me being here possible. And I would like today to talk about a framework for Objective-C called Reactive Cocoa. And while this talk will be iOS and OS X specific, these principles also apply just as well to Android. So if you're an Android developer, don't run away. This could be interesting for you as well. And the talk's title is a little misleading. Yes, it's a functional reactive programming inspired framework, but it's going to be functional-ish. I'm not going to talk so much about the functional side, but it has its uses outside of the functional realm. So, what is Reactive Cocoa? So this is straight from their GitHub homepage. It's a framework inspired by functional reactive programming, so it's just an inspiration. And basically what it lets you do, compose and transform streams of values. And this is very abstract, which is nice because it means you can use it for many different things. So, usually there's different ways we interact with APIs. When we want to retrieve some value, we can pull the value from the API, which means right now, in this example, I'm asking some object to give me a result, and I'm blocking the current thread until this result is available, or I get an error. Now, a different approach is push-based. This means I say, hey API, I need a result, but take your time, and when you get the result, give it to me. And I provide a callback, and the API, once it's done, will push this value into the callback, or it will push an error. But, okay, who here has worked with Objective-C? Can you raise your hand? Who here has used Grand Central Dispatch? All right. Have you ever encountered like nested callbacks and all of that stuff? Of course. Okay. Yeah. So that's one of the things I dislike about callbacks, and there's a different way, which is signals. So a signal is kind of like an object, and it encapsulates something that can be done and which will return a value. Synchronously, asynchronously, it doesn't matter. And it can also return errors, and it's similar to callbacks, except I would say it's simpler. So pretty much in this case, in the last example, you get back a rack signal. So a signal is a thing, a very abstract thing that just knows how to get values. And once you want to get those values, you subscribe to the signal, and it will give you. It's similar to a callback. So, except as opposed to a callback, which usually has either a value or some sort of error, for example, from a request, or asking the user's permission to access the camera, or asking the user's permission to access contacts. You would either get a result or an error. With signals, it's similar, but slightly different. So once you subscribe to a signal, sometime later you will get a value. This is called a next event. It's the next value. And you can have multiple of these values as opposed to just one. And you can listen to these and react to these, hence the reactive part of reactive programming. And then once the signal sends a couple of values, this can be 1 value, 10 values, or 0 values. It can either complete, which means it's done and no more values will come out of it, or it can error out. So something bad happened and returns an error. And after that, no more values will be returned either. So this is all very abstract. So let's see an example. So here I have is that large enough? Can you read that? Okay. So here I am creating a signal object. Each time somebody will have subscribed to this signal, which in callback parlance would be just calling the method and providing a callback. This block right here will be invoked and receive a subscriber object. Now, this is the part where we can push values into the subscriber. So in this example, I'm just sending 1, 2, 3, 4, and then saying, okay, that's it, I'm done, completed. So to consume this signal, you subscribe to it. So right here, I'm calling this method that I just created, getStrings, and let's ignore that part for now, and then subscribing. And each time I receive a value, this block will be invoked. So when I call subscribe, this block inside create signal will be invoked. I pass in the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this each of those values invokes this block here, the subscription. The nice thing about signals as opposed to callbacks is that you can easily compose them, transform them, unify them. And so here's an example. For example, I have these 4 strings I'm pushing into the subscriber. But on the way, I will filter to return only those that have a length of at least 4, and also map them, which means transform each value. So just in this case, I'm just uppercasing the string. So this example would return 3 and 4. Once again, let's just step through it. I call getStrings, which returns a signal object. At this point, nothing happens yet. Then I call subscribe. This block is called the subscription block. And some values are pushed into the subscriber. Each time send next is called, it goes through all of this stack of things. So first the value 1 is sent through this filter block. It's skipped because its length is too short. Same with 2. Then comes 3. Filter returns true, okay, it passes on into this map block, and then it's transformed into its uppercase version. And finally, it arrives at the subscribe block. So, and the string logged out. So right now, this is much different from a simple for loop, let's say, that would do just the same thing. But the nice part about signals is, well, one of the nice parts is that you can easily control the way this subscription is executed. So right now, this is all synchronous. Once I enter this method do stuff, get my signal object and call subscribe, all that happens synchronously. And when this do stuff method returns,
3 and 4 will have been logged to the console, but this block doesn't have to do everything to the subscriber synchronously. You can just as well perform some asynchronous action in this subscription block. So, for example, we dispatch those same actions we performed previously onto a dispatch queue. So right now, if I went back here, if I call do stuff, get strings, etc., subscribe, this method would immediately return and nothing would happen yet. And then this block gets executed. When the queue is ready, all these values will be pushed into the subscriber on the dispatch queue. So we just made this thing asynchronous just by adding this dispatch async inside the subscriber block without having to change any of this filter map logic. So here's a more realistic example. Have any of you used AF networking? Okay, so at least some of you. Right, so AF networking is a callback-based API. And here's an example of how to wrap that into a signal. So in the create signal block, we start our request, and then in the success callback, we just push the response object into the subscriber and say it's done. And if we have a failure, we send the error. And then we start the operation. So, yeah, so you will, this method will return a signal that you can subscribe to, which will return the response object. And I would like to point your attention to this little return value here. So each time the subscription block is called, a value needs to be returned, and this value is what's called a disposable. This is an object that controls when nobody's any longer listening to the subscription. So in this instance, if we start the subscription, but then later decide that actually we aren't interested in this value anymore and there is no use for it, we can stop listening to it. And in this case, to avoid wasting resources, we can, for example, cancel this HTTP request if it hasn't been started yet. So a good showcase is, I think, transforming callback-based code to signals. So this is some old school code where we have dependent operations. So first, we ask some client object to log us in, and then we check, oh, do we have an error? If so, let's present the error and break. And then, after we have logged in, let's load some posts. And once we have the posts, again, we need to check for the error. If present, return the error. And then for the, let's say for the first of these posts, we want to load some comments. So we, again, call some request method, check the error in the callback. Again, repeat this logic for the third time. And then if we haven't failed, if nothing has failed, then okay, then we do something useful with that. But this is such a simple thing. So we have 3 operations that are dependent on the previous one, but we have all this little, well, repetitive boilerplate code where we have exactly the same error checking 3 times, and this nested layout is kind of hard to read. So let's try to improve that a little bit. With reactive Cocoa, it could look kind of like this. Each of these methods returns a signal. So first, we have a login method, which just returns a signal. After that's completed, we aren't interested in the return value, we just want to load the posts. So we say then, client load posts, and then we are interested in this return value, but we want to transform it into something else. But unlike the map example previously, this is asynchronous as well. So we want to load the comments from the server again. So we say flat map, client load comments for post. Flat map means give me a value and you can transform it into another signal that will be chained onto the previous one. So we are, in this part, we are pretty much transforming a posts array into another signal that will load the comments for the first post. And then, at the end of this chain, we can listen to the final result, which will be passed into this block. And if any of these error out, then that error will be propagated. So for example, if the login fails, none of this will ever be executed, and this neither. So we just get to this error subscriber, which will present error. Same with if load posts fails, we have the same error handling. We don't need to repeat it 3 times. Yeah. So I hope that it's somewhat obvious that you have a flow of information. Those are the streams of values that I mentioned in some of the first slides. So this first thing is kind of imperative. First, you log in, and then if there's something, then do this, else do this. Which is, it kind of mixes levels of abstraction, if you will. Here, we just declaratively say login, then transform that login action into posts, and then transform posts into comments, and then in the end do something with either the comments, or if something went wrong, do something else. So you have this sort of stream of values that you can act upon. I would like to talk a little more about those disposables. So going back to our initial example, oh, by the way, is anybody with me so far, at least partially? Partially? I know this is quite a technical topic, but I hope it will sink in and I will have at least piqued your attention or interest. So anyway, back to the first example. Here we are pushing those 4 values into the subscriber. But what if we only ever... Okay, I'll simplify this a little bit. So instead of saying send next 1, 2, 3, 4, I will just use an array here. So iterate over the array, and for each value, send it to the subscriber. So the problem with this approach is, what if we only ever need 2 of these values? For example, this is one method, and when writing it, we don't know what some consumer will do with it. So in this case, the consumer is just interested in the first 2 values and skipping the rest. So even though we just subscribe to the first 2 values, this loop will keep spinning and iterating over 3 and iterating over 4. And if this were something more complicated, for example, fetching 4 requests, which take time and resources and drain the battery, etc., that would be a waste to perform all of those actions, even though we don't really need them. So there's this concept of disposables. Same example with slightly some lines change. So here in the subscription block, we create an object that's called a disposable. This is basically just an object with a Boolean flag that knows if it's disposed or not disposed. That is, if it's still needed or not needed. And now in each iteration we can check, is this disposable disposed? Do we still need to continue? If this disposable is disposed, let's just return. So, and then we return this object to the caller. So now when we subscribe, once we call subscribe next, this block will be executed. We create a disposable, dispatch some action onto a different queue, and return the disposable. Now, on the queue, we arrive at the value 1, check if the disposable is disposed. No, so we send it. It goes through take 2, which checks, okay, this is the first value, so I need it. Puts it into the subscribe next block, logs it out. Same thing happens for 2. But now, once we get to take 2, it realizes, okay, I've received 2 values in total, and I only need 2 values, so I'll pass this one on, but then I'll say, okay, that's it, that's enough, we don't need to continue. So at that moment, that to value is logged out, but take goes and changes this disposable object. So back on the Grand Central Dispatch queue, on a different thread, we go into the third iteration of this loop with 3, but before sending it, we check, is this disposable? Yep, it is. So we just return and cancel the whole thing. Yeah. So this makes more sense if you have, as I said, if you have expensive operations such as those, such as when wrapping a callback API for HTTP requests, or decompressing images, or loading stuff from a database, which could be slow, things like that. So if you have lots of chained operations, this can be really useful and time-saving, and you don't have to do that checking when you call it, because that check is built into this subscriber block. So, in this example, the disposable is a little smarter. It is a block disposable, which means once it's disposed, it will call this block, which just cancels the operation. And that is handled by AF then. And then Reactive Cocoa also makes it fairly simple to control threading things. So without changing the implementation of any of your methods too much, or without changing the call sets too much, you can tweak on which threads or queues those operations are performed. For example, let's say we have a method called decompress image, which takes some data that's, I don't know, loaded from a file or retrieved from the server, and we want to decompress it into a UI image. Now, you can simply call a UI image in it with data, but that will still be a lazy loaded object. So if you try to do hundreds of those on the main thread, it will lock up and stutter. For example, if you do that in a table view, you're going to have a bad time. So the good approach is to do this on a background thread. So let's see how we can do that. So yeah, like if you were just to set, let's say do stuff is called in the main thread, we set an image on an image view, which comes from this decompress method. If this happens on the main thread, it will block for a couple milliseconds and it will be a bad user experience. Now, by changing, let's introduce a signal-based approach to this decompression thing. So here, we just, as a simpler way of saying create signal without all the disposable stuff. So this block will be executed if the signal is subscribed to. So we just say decompress image and we return it. So this by itself doesn't really do anything. It's just converts this method, which returns a UI image, into a signal which sends the same image and then completes. Not so interesting on its own, but now we could call self decompress image signal, which just returns a signal, which doesn't do anything yet. We tell it to, when you are subscribed to, do it on some sort of background scheduler. And here we can pass and say, let's use a scheduler that has higher priority. These map directly to GCD queues, so that the image is decompressed quickly, but on the background. And when you're done and have this image ready, deliver it on the main thread so we can touch the UI. And then in the subscribe block, we just do the same thing we did in this previous code. We just set it on the image view. And so this is a little bit of extra code, but what we have here is we take our computation, perform it on one thread, and when it's done, we jump back to our main thread. And each of these changes requires just one line. Of course, this makes more sense in a larger example. So this is an This is quite an ugly example, but it's partially based on a real code fragment that I've seen in the wild. So I know it's a bigger snippet, but the idea is this. We have a bunch of items, and all of those items need to be saved, and this save thing is asynchronous. For example, save to the server or save to a slow database and so on. So we cannot block the thread. We need to, saving one item gives us a callback with a result that can be either success or an error. So how could we do this the usual way? Well, let's see how many items we have and keep track of some results, then go through each of them and dispatch an operation to some background queue. And in that background queue we say, okay, save this item, and when you're done, give it a callback. If we are out, then we want to cancel the whole thing, and yeah, basically just don't care about the other items. If we have 5 items and one errors out, the whole operation errors out. Else, we want to keep track of some result that we received back in the callback, and then we need to, when we have done all of our saves, performed all of our save operations, we need to do our big callback with the accumulated data, and yeah, so we have to somehow keep track of how far we have gotten, how many items we have saved, and if we have saved all of them, yeah, let's do the callback. But so this code has a bunch of problems. First of all, it fails randomly sometimes, because if this is a concurrent queue, there's no synchronization around this integer, and so sometimes this will perform the callback too early, or will not perform it at all, or things like that. And also this array can get corrupted, and these synchronization issues are easy to miss. Secondly, it doesn't handle the case if items is an empty array, so this callback would never be called if we pass in an empty array. Also, if we have 10 items we need to save, and the first one fails, if this code will still try and save the rest of the items even though the result is unused. Also, let's say this is some sort of server request to save it. What if we want to limit the concurrency to say save a maximum of 5 items at a time, and once you have saved some of them, then take the next ones. So this would be extremely hard with this kind of code. Yeah, and basically callbacks suck because of this nested thing. So we have again some duplicated logic and error and success branches and so on. So let's simplify it a little bit. This is how exactly the same code would look with reactive code. So as you can see, it's much shorter and I would say much more readable because it's declarative. So this code says take each item on some scheduler, which is basically a background thread, and then for each of those items save it, and then collect all of the results into an array, and then deliver the result on the main thread. So this gets rid of all of the problems I mentioned in these bullet points. So it's properly synchronized, it handles zero items. As I talked before about those disposables, if one of these save item calls fails, the whole thing will fail and not waste time and resources trying to save the rest. And yeah, and concurrency control. So I'll talk about that a bit later. It's also simple to change. So the nice thing about signals is they're kind of composable. So for example, we wanted to add logging to check or debug how those items get saved, or if something goes wrong. That's really simple. Here I'm just, on the signal, I'm just calling log status with name, which will give back the same signal, except each time it completes or errors, it logs that to the console. So I have added this to both saving each item and saving the whole thing. So, for example, it would save items 1, 4, and then one of them fails, and the whole signal fails. And adding this, as you can see, just took me 2 lines for each logging statement. Next, concurrency control. So, for example, as I mentioned, it would be nice if we could limit the number of concurrent requests that we're making. So that's really simple as well. Each of these items get mapped into a signal that saves one item, and then I say flatten and pass it a concurrency parameter. It will perform 5 requests at a time until it's done all of them. Same thing. And for example, if we change our mind and think that, oh no, let's actually perform them in sequence, again, just a 1-line change. Instead of flatten 5, which means do 5 things at once, I say concat, which means do all of the things in sequence, one after the previous one. And for example, sometimes, again, this is more about thread handling, sometimes we need to perform actions on a specific thread, like the address book in iOS only can be touched from one thread where the address book was open, otherwise it can crash or it can return bad data. So in this case, I'm just exchanging this background scheduler with a custom scheduler that performs all of these actions on some address book thread. And so as you can see, not a big change. I'm just changing this parameter, and the rest of the code stays the same, and it's delivered on the main thread at the end, so it's safe to subscribe and change the UI and so on. So again, I know this was super technical, but I would urge you to, if you're doing any iOS development at all, check out Reactive Cocoa. It's on GitHub. It's actually made by the GitHub guys, and it can help even with simpler projects because technical depth creeps into your code base slowly. At first you have as you said in your presentation, at first you have something simple and you keep adding to it, adding to it, adding to it, and then later you realize, hey, I cannot maintain this anymore. So this is one of the frameworks we use in our work to keep code simple, maintainable, and easily refactorable. And same thing applies to Android. Actually, we have recently started our Android app, and a version of this framework also exists on Java. It's called RX Java. And if you're using Android, please go and check it out. This framework exists on many different platforms. There's reactive JavaScript. The original version of this framework comes from .NET, where it's just called RX. And yeah, if you're using pretty much any programming language, there's going to be a port of this. I would urge you to check it out. There's wikis and documentation on this, which can make it easily approachable. I know these examples were quite technical, and not all of you are coders, but I hope you still got something out of it. So yeah, if you have any questions,
how was learning curve for this?
Yeah, that's a little problem. So I would say there's an initial bump, but once you get over